but Anthurium alocasia, it's bug parties, that velvety leaf. Hey everyone, today we're going to go through my favorite pest-resistant plants, and just a hint, it's not the albo. Pest resistance is super important when you're growing foliage in your home or at scale. And when I'm talking about pest resistance, I'm talking about the leaf pests. Things like spider mites, thrips, aphids, things that attack the leaves of the plant and even the stalk, things like scale also. I'm not really talking about root dwelling bugs. All plants are really subjected to root bugs. I have never seen any sort of leaf pests on an Epipremnum. In here we have a double planted Cebu blue inside there, as well as the pinnatum. It tends to have a pretty waxy leaf and it grows very fast, but I've never really seen this plant have pests. It's probably why it's one of the most popular houseplants in the world. The Epipremnum of all varieties, I would say. Here's a unique one you guys might not have even seen on camera or in person. This is the Philodendron Wend Imbe variegata. It's a really cool looking bushy plant with a nice delicate, kind of like the Spiritus leaves. Nice and waxy. I'll grab Spiritus to show you. We've got Spiritus here and the Wend Imbe. As you can see, obviously not the same structure. This is a lot more bushy, but you can see the waxiness of these leaves, and also so far in having a few of these Spiritus Sanctis, these are very pest resistant. I haven't seen any sort of issues or traces of pests on their leaves. It's been a really great plant so far. So both these philodendrons have been pest resistant. Another awesome philodendron that is pest resistant is the Florida Ghost, and I'm going to throw in the Florida Beauty in here as well. Not all philodendrons are pest resistant. There's a ton of them. Actually, I have a whole shelf of them, of fuzzy philodendrons. You know how I feel about fuzzy philodendrons and bugs, particularly the spider mite. But this waxy leaf, you see that shine on that leaf? If you have that cuticle, that wax layer, it's usually based of a lipid, like a fat, those mites won't be able to get through that leaf and eat at the juicy, sugary, watery extract inside, so they'll just kind of leave these plants alone. Florida Ghost or Florida Beauty, definitely pest resistant. Obviously, root bugs are a thing, especially across leca and soil. In terms of leaf bugs, I've never seen anything on my ghosts. Keeping with the philodendrons, the Buono has been just a fabulous grower and just such a fun plant to watch grow. You never know what leaf is going to come out next or what the variegation is going to look like. And it has that thick, big leaf again, and it's very rapidly growing. Never had any issues with this, and also the stalk is very waxy and thick, would be probably not that fun for pests to attack. Buono, a great plant. My Joepii is getting so large, but just so cool. Waxy, big leaves. Just such a fun plant to watch grow, and never have seen any sort of issues on it. Once in a while, actually early on, when we got it from import a couple years back, it did have leaf spot, but that's not a pest. But it was a fungal leaf spot that we treated. I think you have to treat with some copper or a fungicide. This is a big, beautiful plant, Joepii. She is pest resistant to the leaves as far as I'm concerned. Philodendron Ring of Fire, really great variegation. And again, that waxy, thick leaf, fast growing, just is no interest to the spider mites or the aphids. The variable to me is always that waxy leaf. If it's got that, then the spider mites leave it alone because they know they can just go up on a different shelf and go attack these leaves. Even though these are actually really clean looking splendid leaves, it's a much softer leaf compared to this, the waxiness of it, even just to feel it. And they end up hanging out on the back sides of the leaves. Much more difficult to penetrate this leaf than this leaf. These last two are a bit more of a shocker because they are a thinner leafed plant, though they do have a bit of a wax coating on the Paraiso as well as the burl marks variegata, but I didn't want to include that one because the leaves are just so thin that maybe because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't have pests. And the heartleaf variegata, the Hederaceum, I've never had issues on this plant, just like I'm sure you guys at home on your heartleaf variegatas or Philodendron Brazils or Rio have never seen any issues on these plants. This is actually from tissue culture. I'm super proud of this plant. It's huge. Leaf is like the size of my head, almost. I have a big head. But this plant, I've never really seen bugs on either of these plants. I'm super happy with how they grow. And finally, Syngonium Pink Splash. I'm not including all Syngoniums because I have seen a little bit of bugs or some sort of leaf degradation on the Syngonium albo, but the Syngonium Pink Splash is a really great plant, and I've never seen just any tracks of anything on this leaf, even though it's really thin and soft and it doesn't have a huge thick wax coating on it. I've been very impressed with this plant overall. I've grown a few hundred of them at this point. Now there's a ton of honorable mentions in here. A lot of the philodendrons that don't have that fuzzy leaf will make this cut, but just I wanted to be sure that these plants that I've shown you have really great pest resiliency, but I didn't include the albo because I have in the past, it was my fault, but I have had thrips on them, and I have had, or seen, I've never had it, I've seen mites on the Monstera. Just I guess say I've got an Aurea Monstera variegata, and she has never had any sort of bugs, but on these albos, I can't include them on this, even though they have that thick, waxy leaf. For the Aroids, I would say Epipremnum, Syngonium, Monstera for the most part, except for Standaleana tends to get some bugs, but Anthurium, Alocasia, it's bug parties. That velvety leaf, that thinner, supple leaf, those bugs are going to attack those plants like crazy. So keep that in mind when you're growing your Aroids at home. Go for a waxy, thick-leafed plant if you don't want any drama. And go walk around a big box store like Home Depot. Those are the plants that they have out on the floor and that grow so well in people's homes. Look at your palms and all those other plants in the store. They have a ton of mites all over the leaves, especially if you look down deep. If you guys like this type of video, please click the like button down below so I know you like this type of content. And if you want to come back every week for another video about plants, click subscribe and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.